Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namaha Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees. So this morning I wanted to take a little time and try to, in a systematic way, by actually quoting from both our Mool Sastra, Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and also from other sastra like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, to clarify a few points regarding the Svarupa of the Jiva. So first I entitle this video that there's not only one angle of vision on this particular topic. Giving an example, it may be that Sri Guru may give a statement, and according to different disciples, they may, especially in a nuanced siddhant, understand and digest the words of Sri Guru according to the filter of their understanding. When that happens, the ability to come together in Istagoshti fashion to discuss the nuances of the various angles of vision or understanding of various disciples is very important. And of course, it is especially important to be able to do that with love and affection. In a previous experience that I've had, I saw, and again, I'm not speaking to any particular institutions or anything, I'm just bringing up the topic. Again, my very nature is that I don't like to be embroiled in any kind of in-group, out-group, this sangha, that sangha, etc. I'm not amenable or not, I don't resonate with those things. So, but there was an experience that there was a topic regarding the origin of the Jiva's sojourn in the material world. And of course, our Srila Prabhupada, in first speaking on this issue at a time when devotees were very young, because we have to remember our Srila Prabhupada spent a total of 11 to 12 years manifest in his Acharya Leela. And so it would mean that those who spent from day one even to Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi would have had perhaps 11 years of experience, at least in this life, in their understanding of Bhakti and Bhakti Tattva. Now, many of us are looking at, tenure of 40, 50 years in the process, and certainly, and hopefully, insight, perspective, realization, so many things have grown. But even at that time, Srila Prabhupada gave a simple narrative for the digestion and understanding of devotees that we were once with Krishna, and that due to the misuse of our free will, that we left Krishna and began a sojourn in the material world, which we are now trying to revive that original relationship and go back home, back to Godhead. So that narrative, of course, served as an impetus and as an inspiration to perform bhakti, because the consideration was, I do have a organic and natural relationship with God that I somehow was responsible due to the misuse of free will for breaking, and now I am in the practice of bhakti reviving that relationship. So that narrative was completely suitable to inspiration to take up the practice of bhakti. Now, the question becomes whether the narrative itself was a theological siddhanta, did we actually originate in a relationship with Krishna from which we somehow misused free will, or etc., and fell to the world? Well, Srila Prabhupada certainly, in the course of his writings and statements, corrected the idea that that's a siddhanta. Of course, in the 7th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, he clearly mentions that no one can actually fall from Vaikuntha unless there was something to be done in terms of like a lila, then no one actually falls from Vaikuntha. But what ensued from the initial narrative was a sense that devotees, according to how they digested the narrative, took sides. That our Srila Prabhupada has literally said this, and therefore, without any other consideration, this is the absolute perspective on how the Jivas enter the material world. Other devotees, in the course of their unfoldment, maturation, different things, they saw, well, no, Srila Prabhupada spoke this as a way to help us, but there is a siddhantic, theological siddhantic reality, and, that's different, right? It does not make these statements of Srila Prabhupada false, because the statements were used to inspire bhakti. They were not just simply like something made up, because there is truth in the fact we have an organic relationship with Krishna. It is true that on a daily basis, a minute-to-minute basis, we are misusing free will. So all of those things have truth in it. But it is not a theological siddhanta that we were with Krishna in the spiritual world and fell from there due to some misuse of free will, or being overcome by Maya in a particular way, etc. Because there are too many sastric statements that actually declare that no Maya can enter the spiritual world, and also that relationships established with Krishna are unbreakable. So anyway, but it caused a division. And in the course of that division, even the hierarchical body canonized the concept in a book. And having canonized the concept, now it gave rise to a clear division of those who did not accept that the idea was a siddhantic, theological siddhantic fact, and understood it to be Srila Prabhupada's giving a narrative to help the Jiva, which was not unprecedented, because even in Srimad Bhagavatam we have the case of Narada Muni giving an allegory to Maharaj Prachinabhari in order to establish a siddhant, right? And of course, with our Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we similarly have cases of giving a narrative to explain something. If you read the 15th chapter of Jiva Dharma, that's made very clear. His descriptions of Jiva Tattva, he clearly explains, were numerous examples to explain the nature of Tatashta Swabhav to Brajanath, who asked the question, what is Tatashta Swabhav? And he said, I've spoken all these things only to give an indication, right, that you should actually try to realize it in your Chit Samadhi, right? In other words, in doing bhajan, take up the process of bhajan and try to realize it there, right? So we have, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one other very important point was that he mentioned the reason he did it in this form was because the intellect of the jivas are pramad. Pramad means it's translated as inattentive, but this inattentiveness comes because of being intoxicated, mada, by the material life. Everyone is absorbed in material life in various ways, and at the same time, people are trying to digest unfolding in a process in which there's a huge theological, sort of understanding. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying, well, listen, because the intellect of the jivas are pramad, then giving a narrative like this to give indication to help you understand is what I've spoken. Now realize this by doing bhajan, and in your Chit Samadhi, all of the realities of everything will come out. So it is not unprecedented that the Guru speaks in narratives which are designed to help the disciple and especially to encourage bhajan life. So in this regard, I spoke on that to say that in regard to the issue of the Svarupa of the Jiva, there is a similar phenomenon. that there are different devotees, disciples, and followers of our own Guru Parapadma, Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnu Parakaramaksas, Tarasapasisiman, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, and also our contemporary Guru Vargas, who have understood and digested statements of Srila Gurudev in different ways according to their angle of vision from their own individual unfoldments in bhakti. So a healthy discussion based around the vetting processes of Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra would be the best way to find reconciliation to things. But if that doesn't happen, then the idea of taking sides and perhaps even claiming sort of the authenticity of a particular angle of vision as being the authentic angle of vision of Sri Gurudev, and that others don't have that or outside of that angle of vision, which of course is wrong. Just like in the case that I cited in the example of Srila Prabhupada and disciples and followers of Srila Prabhupada, which we all are. So in the same way, those who are disciples and followers of Srila Gurudev are not homogeneous, robotic persons. And people have insights and realizations according to their own individual bhakti samskars and so forth. And in the course of their studies and everything else, they may hear statements of Gurudev, and their angle of vision and digestion of those statements of Gurudev may come to them, right, in a particular way. So, that being said, I thought that I've already spoken on the issue in general, the Svarupa of the Jiva, but because it is a very nuanced topic and there are various angles of vision on it, I thought to only address a very small portion of things in order that things could be digested, because the tendency is that if there's so much information and so many quotes and so many things, it becomes hard to follow a particular chain of thought or digest it. So today I only wanted to address perhaps one or two things and give an alternative angle of vision and see what happens from there. So there is a angle of vision that some have, that the eternal rasa, sthai bhav, and the siddha deha, that everything that is there in our perfection exists in the Bada Jiva now and is existing there in some way, form, or fashion, covered by Maya. Because we have, for the most part, I can't speak for everybody, I don't know everybody, but for the most part, most of us are coming from an unfolding process of having been illusioned by Maya from time without beginning, having in some lifetime picked up the process of trying to come towards service to Bhagavan, or the process of bhakti, and in our unfoldment we've come to some particular level of that, right? So, for those persons, those who have come from the position of having been illusioned and are now unfolding, some have the idea that the perfection is an eternally existing phenomenon and therefore is existing even in the Maya covering of the Jiva, that perfectional elements, siddha deha, the eternally established rasa, which comes from a sthai bhav, etc., is all existing there in a dormant, unmanifest, latent, or covered state. Our Srila Guru Pada Padma has certainly, on many occasions, spoken this. He said that everyone has a very beautiful form, a very beautiful name, a very beautiful mode of service to Sri Radhakrishna, and everything. And at this state, it is like in a seed form, it is existing in a unmanifest or latent or dormant position, etc. So, of course, that can be understood in various ways. So one is an analysis of the English words, and this has been something that I have spoken about for many, many years, because I think it is the key to unlocking reconciliation of a lot of these things. So that our Guru Parapadma, and I'm going to use my own Guru Dev primarily, but it extends to our contemporary Guru Vargas, our Srila Prabhupada, and others, all the way coming down from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, who even in his commentary on the first verse of Shishashtakam directly says the same thing, that everyone has a beautiful body, etc., which has now been covered by Maya. So now, the question arises that in their use of speaking this narrative, first, what was the meaning of the words, and secondly, what was the intention of the narrative? So first, let's take a look at the words themselves. So, of course, many times, Srila Gurudev, when he would speak like this, he would say that your constitutional name, form, service, and everything else of your perfection exists in the Jiva in a dormant, latent, or unmanifest way. Right? So now, we have to then take a look. Let me see what is the nature of the things being described. So what's being described is my eternal Sthaibhav, the eternal rasa that I have with Krishna, which is based on a Sthaibhav, my spiritual body, which is the form of that particular bhav, my service and everything else in the realm of the Ekadas Bhav, all of the elements that compose my perfection, all of those things are there. So of course when we read Sastra, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu of Rupa Goswami Pad, or any Sastra, Chaitanya Charitamrita, then we know that all of those elements, like Sthaibhav, Rasa, Siddha Deha, etc. I'm sorry that the volume was a little low. Someone is reminding me. I probably need to speak up because I have the volume up. I'm just speaking very low key. But the fact is, we know all of those things are composed of spiritual energy called Svarup Shakti, the internal energy of Bhagavan, which is composed of Sandini, Samvit, and Aladini. So that potency of Sandini, Samvit, and Aladini is the spiritual energy of Bhagavan, and it is the same energy that exists in the eternal associates of Bhagavan. So if that energy, Svarup Shakti, which is the composition of the things we mentioned, your Siddha Deha, your Sthaibhav, etc., if the composition of those things, which is Svarup Shakti, can be covered by Maya, then many theological problems arise. One, then perhaps the idea that you can fall from the spiritual world becomes a theological possibility, because that would mean that the eternal associates who are imbued and endowed with Svarup Shakti, it can be overcome by Maya. And the whole spiritual world, which is composed of the Svarup Shakti, Sandini, Samvit, and Aladini, it may be overcome by Maya. Of course, all of the scriptures say that's not possible, right? Like in the second canto Srimad Bhagavatam, I think it is the 9th chapter, maybe the 10th verse, it's clearly explained there that Pravartate Rajas Tamas Tayo Asatva Chamisram Na Cha Kala Vikramaha Yatra Maya. That in the spiritual world, there is no influence or potency of Rajagun, Tamagun, or even mixed Sattvagun, which means only Suddha Sattva exists there. Pure spiritual energy, no even material mode of goodness exists there. And Nacha Kala Vikramaha, time, the influence of material time, past, present, and future, also has no influence there. And what to speak of, then he says, Maya. Maya has no entrance there. So it would mean that it is impossible for the residents of the spiritual world, or anywhere where Svarup Shakti is present, for Maya to overcome it. So, Jiva Goswami Pad is mentioned in Paramatma Sandarbha that it is the absence, and I'm just making everything simple here because, like I said, we don't want to overload everything. But Jiva Goswami Pad has mentioned clearly that it is the absence. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur simply has mentioned it is the absence of this potency, Swarup Shakti, that is the differentiating factor between those who have come under conditioning from time without beginning and those who from time without beginning are not conditioned, the Nitya Parikas and Nitya Associates of Bhagavan. So it is this one element that is the separating or differentiating factor. Now, we have to then reconcile if we have, by statement of our Guru Parapadma, all of the things composed of Swarup Shakti within us, how then did they become covered by Maya? So, pregnant pause to think about it. Well, perhaps because my Guru Parapadma is himself the embodiment of that Swarup Shakti. And my Guru Parapadma is also coming directly in Parampara from Jiva Goswami Pad, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So his statements will be in accord with everything they've said. So, if Jiva Goswami Pad has mentioned that that Swarup Shakti is not present in the Bhada Jiva, how would Guru Dev say it is? So then I have to think, did Srila Guru Dev say that the Swarup Shakti is present in the Jiva? I've never one time heard throughout all the years that I spent with Srila Guru Dev, I know people have many more years with Srila Guru Dev, but I have never heard Srila Guru Dev say that Swarup Shakti is present in the Bhada Jiva. Now, of course, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given analysis, and all of our acharyas have, that Swarup Shakti is also the Mool Shakti of Bhagavan. Therefore, there is no Shakti existing anywhere that has not had its genesis from Swarup Shakti. But clearly the functions of Swarup Shakti are different from the functions of other Shaktis that have manifest, though they have their genesis in Swarup Shakti, because it's the Mool Shakti, right? Just like electricity may have its genesis, just as a rough example, from a particular power plant. But when that electricity comes in the house, it functions in different ways according to where it is channeled. In the refrigerator, it will produce, through the mechanism of the refrigerator, it will produce cooling and freezing. In the stove, it will produce heat. You understand? So, though something comes from something else, its function still becomes important. So, Srila Guru Dev has never mentioned that the original potency, Mool Shakti, Swarup Shakti, has at any time been in the Bhada Jiva and covered by Maya. Now, everyone accepts this, I hope, right? Everyone accepts this. So then, the next thing will be then to understand what is the composition of the things that Srila Guru Dev has mentioned, which we know in their substantive forms are composed of Swarup Shakti. What is the composition of those things in the Bhada Jiva? Because Guru Dev has said that they're there. So the question becomes, what is their composition there? It's not Swarup Shakti because, again, we're back to the theological problem of Swarup Shakti being covered by Maya. So what is the composition of what it is that Srila Guru Dev is saying is in the Bhada Jiva? What is it made of? And this is a question I've asked several times to those who espouse the idea of these things being present there in a substantive way. So, I completely understood that my Guru Parapadma, just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, if you take the context of his statements in the commentary on the first verse of Shishashtakam, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making a statement, and in fact getting to this portion of his statement, that everyone has a beautiful body and everything and it's just covered, he's making the statement that the nature of Harinam, which is Taramaje Savasestra Nam Sankirtan, it is the essential jewel in the practice of bhakti, Harinam. He's saying this Harinam, because he's glorifying Harinam, it has the potency that when we take up the practice of bhakti headed by this Harinam, when the ignorance of the jiva is removed by the influence of that Harinam, it will reveal a spiritual, beautiful body composed of Svarup Shakti. This is what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's intention is. And the same way, our Guru Pada Padma is mentioning that existing in the jiva is a potential that when they take up the process of bhakti and do anugatya to pure devotees following this process of bhakti, the result will be the revelation of a beautiful form, a particular rasa, a particular service, etc., etc. So therefore, they have caveated the description of all of these things with the word constitutional. That in your constitutional position, your name, form, everything is there. And you will realize it when you take to the process of bhakti in anugatya. Why? Because the process of bhakti itself is Svarup Shakti. Bhakti is Svarup Shakti. So when you become influenced by Svarup Shakti in the course of your practice in incremental stages up to Bhav, you will realize by that Svarup Shakti a beautiful name, form, rasa with Krishna, everything. So is that a true statement? Absolutely. Now, if I take that statement to mean that there is a substance which is in the jiva, which is composed, or which is the substance, which is the composition of the things that Srila Gurudev mentioned, your name, form, etc., the question becomes, what is the composition of that substance? What is it made of? So if you look in the dictionary at the word potency, right? Because sometimes that's the word that's used to describe it. It's a potency. If you look in the dictionary, potency has the definition of one, a potential that has the power to influence an outcome. So I've digested that Srila Gurudev is speaking about that potential. The second thing is a substance that has the power to produce an outcome. So here, potential also potency means a substance. So to give an example, to clarify the definition, they give the example of medicine. And they say, for instance, that the botanical or the chemical composition of certain medicine has the power to effect the outcome of curing the disease. There are substantive powers in the botanical or chemical composition of a medicine to cure a disease. So that means that potency related to a substance has a makeup. It has a substantive makeup. Whether it's, let's say if it's a botanical combination of echinacea, golden seal, whatever it might be, those are identifiable substantive compositions that make up the substance that we're now saying has the potency to create an outcome. So if we say that there's a substance, a potency, meaning a substance in the jiva, what is its composition? If we accept that it is a potential, then problem solved. Because potential also has the power to create an outcome, according to the very definition of the word potency. Right? And if my Guru Pada Padma spoke to that potential, it completely aligns with all Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra going all the way back to Jiva Goswami Pad. Now, he says that that potential is there and uses various words to acknowledge that potential. Latency, dormancy, unmanifest. All of those words are synonyms of potentiality. Now, it is not like material potential, because bhakti is absolute. So it is an absolute potential that if you take up the practice of bhakti, bhakti will reveal all of the things that Srila Gurudev has mentioned. A beautiful form, name, service, etc., etc. Now, if we say that this rasa, form, everything is there in the jiva and it's only covered by Maya, then that should be a universal thing. In other words, any jiva who uncovers Maya in any way, form, or fashion should discover those things. A particular ras, a form, everything in relation to Krishna. So now is where I want to go to the very mool grunt of our theological system, which is Brihad Bhagavatamrita. In Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad, he gives some discussion in the second section, which is called Jnana Kand, right? And I'm going to read it. He gives some understanding about this. So let me give context to the section. This is called Sangati, when you make a contextual connection with whatever verse you're about to read or section you're about to read. So in this section, he's going over various things, but he's also going over prominently the fact that, one, the jivas in Bhagavan are different. So this also later will be manifest like in Paramatma Sandarbha of Jiva Goswami. So he's making that distinction, that they're actually different. Secondly, he's glorifying the nature of bhakti over the idea of simply liberation. So that's the section that we're in now. So I'm going to read verse 188 in that section and read its commentary, Digdarshani Tika of Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad. So the verse is, Muktau Swatattva Jnana Nena Maya Apagamato Hishaha Nivartate Gana Ananda Brahmasa Anu Bhavo Bhavet. Right? This is the Sanskrit of that verse. The translation in English is, when the jiva attains liberation by knowledge of his true identity. Now, listen to this carefully. When the jiva attains liberation by knowledge of his true identity, his illusion about his connection with the material world is eradicated. So that means Maya has been removed, right? So he's speaking here in the context of liberation. He says that when the jiva realizes his true identity, then the material world, the illusion of the material world, avidya, etc., ahamkara, etc., are eradicated. At that time, he experiences that he is a particle of the all-blissful Brahman. So let's pregnant pause here again, because what we just went through was that all of the elements of a siddha deha, a rasa with Krishna, a particular mode of service, everything related to perfection in bhakti is there, but it's only covered by Maya, and the removal of that covering would reveal all of these things, because that's the actual nature of the soul, right? But here it says, when the jiva attains liberation by knowledge of his true identity, right? His illusions about connection with the material world has been eradicated, Maya has been removed. At that time, he experiences that he is a particle of all blissful Brahman. Let's read the Tika of Srila Sanatana Goswami Pad. The Bhakti Sastras say, one attains liberation by realizing his true identity as pure spirit. This knowledge puts an end to his delusion that he and his forgetfulness of his real nature, right? And frees one from the illusion of Maya. He then experiences, not that I am a cowherd boy, not that I am a gopi, not that I am in Vatsalya Rasa, but he experiences I am part, Amsa, of the supreme spiritual entity, Para Brahman or Bhagavan, who is by nature all blissful. One should understand that the conception expressed here is that Brahman and Bhagavan are one. However, when one attains liberation by just realizing the identity of the soul, here he's saying, by realizing the identity of soul, is indeed to be part of the Lord. The happiness he experiences is only partial. Although bhaktas, so he's making a differentiation between just all jivas who may even remove Maya and become liberated, he's making a distinction. Bhaktas are also part of Parabrahman or Bhagavan. By their bhajan, the practice of bhakti, or serving the Lord in love, they achieve divine happiness, bhakti sukha, by experiencing the unlimited sweetness of his lotus feet. It means realizing Krishna, his root, gun, parika, lila, etc. Right? This is how devotees of the Lord are distinctly superior to those who are merely liberated. So if the idea is that the Svarupa, meaning the Rasa, Siddhadeha, etc., everything is in every Jiva, and the only issue is that it is now presently covered by Maya, and when that Maya is removed, then that everything will come out, is not theologically what our line espouses. And Srila Gurudev has never said that. Srila Gurudev and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and everyone else coming in our Bhaktivinoda Dada have expressed everything in relation to those jivas who have come under the influence of Swarup Shakti by the practice of bhakti. So it is not a universality that every jiva has a particular established rasa, which is just now covered by Maya, etc. Every jiva does, however, have the potential to obtain a particular rasa in relationship to Krishna. And the process for doing that is the practice of bhakti. If there is another explanation, then again, I acknowledge there are many angles of vision here. So if there is another explanation for the terminology that Srila Gurudev has used in terms of constitutional, meaning your perfection, latency, dormancy, unmanifest, meaning the potential, then please explain it. Or if there is the idea that there is potency in the form of a substance, then please explain what the substance is composed of. This has been my only query in regard to this presentation of Srila Gurudev's statements. So I'm open always to hearing, but I'm asking for an explanation of those things. Now, finally, because again, the idea was not to become overwhelming with so much information, I want to go to a section of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. Again, this is in our Mool Sastra, in which the only quote that I've ever heard for that praman of a substance being in the jiva and given by Bhagavan is also in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So I want to go to that section and look at that carefully and read the commentaries that Srila Gurudev has translated here and see how we can understand that. So I'll first go to the verse that's quoted in pursuance of that idea. Now, not everybody who quotes this verse has quoted it in pursuance of the idea that there is a potency or substance that eternally has been placed in the jiva. I've heard the term placed at the time of manufacturing. I know this was the answer to a question by someone to Srila Bhakti Vigan Bharti Goswami Maharaj. So, Srila Bhakti Vigan Bharti Goswami Maharaj was answering the question of this devotee. So again, is this a position where Srila Bhakti Vigan Bharti Goswami Maharaj is establishing a theological siddhanta, or is it an attempt to give an example to explain a concept? Right? So that's what has to come in first, and we would need to have some ability to get that question answered. So, one is that the way I've heard it is that Pujapad Srila Bhakti Vigan Bharti Maharaj mentioned that at the time of the manufacturing of the jiva, that a special potency, which is inclusive of the rasa, etc. of the jiva, is placed there. So of course, obviously, and having read the writings of Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Goswami Maharaj, I know for a fact that he does not accept that the jivas are manufactured at a particular point in time. And I'm sure the persons espousing that idea also know the same thing, that the jivas actually are not manufactured at a particular time, but the jiva is nitya, the jiva is eternal. So their quality is also eternal, right? So their potentialities are also eternal and absolute. So, right? But substantively is something there. So let me read the verse that's quoted to indicate something is there. This comes in the section called Vaikuntha, which is in the second canto. I think it's, anyways, it's verse 190 in the second canto. And the verse is, Vachitra lila vibhavasya tasya samudra koti ganana sashaya vichitri tat ruchi dhana lila vibhutim uttar kayatum prabhu kaha. Sri Krishna's pastimes expand with ever new variety. His heart is as deep as millions of oceans, samudra koti, right? Is as deep as millions of oceans. By logic, no one can understand the purpose for which he has placed different tastes in the hearts of his devotees and expanded the opulence of his pastimes accordingly. So the first thing that we get is that though we do not see in the Sanskrit, we don't see the idea vichitri tatta ruchi dhanalila, that this ruchi dhan, the giving of this ruchi, has been to every jiva. We don't see that anywhere here. But it is indicated, right? In other words, you can, by indication, and we'll perfectly see it when we look back at the Sangati in this particular section, Adhyay Sangati. When we align it with the previous verses, it will make complete sense. So it obviously indicates devotees, or those in the practice of bhakti. Because nowhere does it say or give indication that this placing of a particular ruchi is in the heart of every single jiva. It's not here, but perhaps let's look at the commentary. Gokumar, right, because he's using a system of presenting a vishaya concept, then he's saying, but a doubt may arise. A doubt is called samshaya. So he's saying Gokumar may raise to Nard Muni this doubt. Gokumar may raise the doubt. The Supreme Lord is the source of all knowledge and the originator of all actions, is known as Rishikesh, the control of the senses. So he's asking a question, which has been the theme of the verses leading up to this. Why does he not just inspire all the devotees, universally, devotees again, not everyone, devotees, right, with the highest form? Let me read it directly. I don't want to add anything. Why doesn't he inspire all the devotees to have taste for the topmost form of worship? In other words, it's been explained already that superior to the worship in Vaikuntha, the forms of liberation that I mentioned earlier, the topmost form of worship, which is the worship of the Madhurya Mayi residents of Braj, why doesn't Bhagavan just give that to everybody? Why does he make variations and differences? Why don't he just give that to everyone? Right? In answer, Sri Narada speaks this verse, beginning Vichitra. He says, Sri Krishna wants to taste wonderful, variegated nectarian rasas, because Krishna is Rasa Vaisaha or Akila Rasamrita Murti. So he wants to experience a variety of different rasas. Therefore, he had placed a variety of extraordinary desires in the hearts of devotees, endowing them with special moods. So first of all, this is very important. He has placed desires, right? So that means that what will eventually become a particular taste of service was generated from desire in the heart of a devotee, right? Endowing them with special moods. Significantly, because the heart of the Lord is unfathomably deep, like millions of oceans, no one can ascertain the opulence of his pastimes by means of logic. In other words, why Bhagavan does this, why Krishna does this, is unfathomable to the Jiva, and also unquestionable to the Jiva, because he's Bhagavan. If it is his desire to have varieties of taste, because it is in his nature, being Akila Rasamrita Murti, how can you come and present a logic and reasoning from your angle of vision that, oh, well, why don't you just give everybody the same thing and everybody have the topmost rasa, right? Of course, there's reasons, because it's already been explained that the Lord wants the variety. First of all, the variety nourishes the ras, right? Let me finish reading here. Bhagavan has bestowed a vast variety of taste among his devotees. Never has the word Jiva been used here. Never. Always the word devotees have been used both in the commentary and in the verse itself. The reason is that by constantly expanding his pastimes in ever new ways, he gets opportunity to relish these new sweet flavors. Otherwise, it will be impossible to taste such sweetness. In this way, the Lord expands the opulence of his manifold pastimes. His devotees, again the word devotees, experience his grace according to their respective tastes, considering their respective moods to be topmost, and tasting the mellows related to those moods which are fully satisfying. Now, to understand this verse, we have to go back and look at the previous verses. But I'll at least go back, let's go back 2 verses, right? We can just go back to the previous verse. So now it describes how the various moods of the devotees are accomplished. So he says here in verse 189, Upasana anusranena date. So the word date in Sanskrit means to give, just the same as done, means like to give, right? So Upasana anusranena date hi Bhagavan phalam. Who is giving the fruit of the upasan? Upasan means the mode of worship. Natatra pari tushta syat kasyachit sajja labdha. So, Sri Bhagavan bestows the appropriate results to everyone according to their particular mode of worship. So how do people get a particular relationship with Bhagavan? It's according to the particular upasan they've done, the particular mode of worship or service they've taken up. So in Bhakti, our acharyas have explained, including Srila Gurudev, who many times when he was speaking on this subject, spoke about mature and immature lobe or greed, which are synonyms for ruchi. Jiva Goswami Pad, showing the line of consistency here, has expressed in Bhakti Sandarbha, maybe Anuched 310, that in the mature stage of ruchi, tasya tadrisa karaka basa samulasi tarito spatikamani, right? Sastari shrute shu tadrisa ragatmakaya bhakti paripatishu api ruchi jayate. That when any devotee coming into the mature stage of ruchi, means coming towards a shakti, right? They hear the transcendental narrations of Bhagavan's Leela and pastimes in Sastra, then a particular abhas, means now we're talking about a substance, a particular abhas of the mood of one of the Ragatmik Jan comes onto the chitta of that jiva. And Gurudev has described this as mature lobe or mature greed. At that time, a ruchi jayate arises in that mode of worship. And the devotee does his upasan, deeply absorbed in attraction to that mood of that eternal associate of Bhagavan. At that time, Gurudev clearly says, in that mature stage of ruchi, at that time, the rasa of the jiva is fixed. The potential for all of that has always existed in the jiva. But in pragmatic, substantive ways, through the incremental developments in bhakti, coming to the stage of ruchi, going to a shakti, that particular mood becomes fixed in the heart. Another thing is that whenever you see a shadow, it means the substance that's casting that shadow or person that's casting that shadow is nearby, because the shadow can't be separated from the thing casting the shadow. So our acharyas have also mentioned when the abhas of that mood of an eternal associate comes onto the chitta in the stage of a shakti, fixing a determination of that devotee to do upasana in that mood, it indicates that the actual substance which produced that abhas, which is Svarup Shakti, is present, because it's casting an abhas. So after a Shakti will come Sudha Sattva Viseshatma Prem Suryamsa Samyabha. And that ruchi based chitta masunya will melt the chitta with desires for service in that mood. So taking Srila Gurudev's statements in this context completely becomes aligned all the way from Jiva Goswami to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, etc. Now, na tatra paritoshta syat kasyachit sajja labdha. So here it says, upon attaining the reward of perfection. So Bhagavan has given the reward of the perfection of that upasana done by that devotee. No one feels dissatisfied. Everyone feels perfectly satisfied with the ruchi they acquired in the unfoldment of their bhajan for a particular mood, and did upasana in that mood. Bhagavan awards the fruit, phalam, of that upasana, and the devotee is completely, absolutely satisfied. Same things are mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So, without going any further, I'm going to conclude with a statement of Srila Gurudev, which affirms the things which were just read in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, again making the clear alignment of the conceptions. So, bear with me 1 second. This is from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. Srila Gurudev in this particular chapter is on Sadhana Bhakti, and he's giving a commentary on the verse, right? Vishwanath Chakravarti and Gurudev are giving commentary on the verse, Kriti Sajya Bhavet Bhavasa Saranabhida Nitya Siddhisha Bhavasha Prakritam Ridi Sadyata, right? I was going to go through Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but I again don't want to create an overload here. So to keep it in contextual line with everything we've talked about today, I'm just going to read Srila Gurudev's statement on the meaning of the word Nitya Siddha. Nitya Siddha Bhav is the word that describes all of our perfections. When a Nitya Siddha Bhav, Prakritam, manifests, right, from the potential of being unmanifested, manifests, it shows all of those things. A Siddha Deha, a particular rasa, a particular mode of service. All of these things are shown when the Nitya Siddha Bhav becomes prakat in the heart of the jiva. Now, Srila Gurudev describes this word, Nitya Siddha Bhav. He's describing this word. So, now I have it because I'm on my computer. It says it's on page 24, and I know that's going to be different, but to find it as a reference, just go to the section in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu on Sadhana Bhakti, and there you'll be able to pick it up very easily. Here he says the word Nitya Siddha has been used in this verse in order to dispel the doubt. What was the doubt? That the Nitya Siddha Bhav was brought about by the actions of sadhana. That's the doubt. That when you perform sadhana, it creates a Nitya Siddha Bhav. So Gurudev and Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in their commentaries on Rupa Goswami's verse say no. The sadhana does not create the bhav. The bhav is Nitya Siddha. It's eternally existent. Right? So that Nitya Siddha Bhav, which is eternally existent, Gurudev then goes on to explain, bhav is an eternally accomplished phenomenon. It is Nitya Siddha. It always exists. Right? So a Nitya Siddha Bhav also potentially also exists in the jiva. Potentially. Because every jiva has the potential to acquire a nitya siddha bhav. And if they perform bhakti, then a nitya siddha bhav will manifest. But let's say you perform yoga, tapasya, gyan, or any other path, when Maya is removed, it will not reveal a nitya siddha bhav in relationship to Krishna. We just read that earlier in Brihad Bhagavatamrita. So now he says, but if you're practicing bhakti, it always exists in the eternal associates. This nitya siddha bhav, its repository, is in the hearts of the eternal associates, nitya parikars of Bhagavan. This nitya siddha bhav manifests itself from the Lord's eternal associates into the heart of the purified jiva. Then he says this is verified in Chaitanya Charitamrita in the verse Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhu kabul noi shravanadi sudachite karyohidoi. Then Gurudev gives translation of this verse. Krishna prema is an eternally established reality, is not brought about by sadhana. It automatically manifests itself in the heart of the purified jiva by the performance of the various limbs of bhakti such as Shravan, Kirtan, etc. So, I only wanted to try to give a just simple, but using Sastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. Because a lot of times, the presentations of either anecdotal or narratives that were used to answer a question we had was according to what the person answering the question felt was best for our digestion. So we can't turn the answer to a question we have into the theological standard. It is to help us understand the theological standard. So in order to understand the theological standard, my Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, and our entire Guru Parampara has given a mechanism. Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. And by doing that, you will actually find reconciliation rather than partiality. Because if you look at it from another angle, when the jiva becomes perfect in Nitya Vartmana Kal, then all of the things that are realized by the jiva at that time appear as an eternal reality that never did not exist. So for Srila Gurudev or any of our acharyas to say everything is present there, it is eternal, it is fixed. Speaking from the angle of Nitya Vartmana Kal, this is a fact. But if you try to conflate your current position within Prakat Kal, within material time, with the realities of Nitya Vartmana Kal, it is a number of things. One is it can't be done. Na cha kala vikramha. You can't conflate material time and eternal time. They don't go together like oil and water. Don't go together. Secondly, you can't evolve a tendency towards Sahajavad. Because a younger person without discrimination will think, yes, everything is already in me, and in our line, primarily, it is Manjari Bhav. I already have Manjari Bhav within me. I'm saying an immature person may come to these kind of conclusions. So having an actual thorough understanding of what it is that Srila Gurudev said and what it is he intended by the words he used is extremely important. And when you do that, and you do the exegesis or the scriptural study and tying things together, you will see that it is not a question of one side is right, one side is wrong. There is a reconciliation. That from different angles of vision or different drishtikon, both things can be correct when they're understood in their perspective. So I will end here. And again, I will invite devotees. I mentioned the sources where I got what I explained. And so I welcome devotees to read that. There's so much more. But I think, again, overload is not as healthy as digesting something. There is one thing that I did forget to mention. I had not a question, but so much a kind of, it kind of was a question, it kind of was a statement where there was some utilization of the statement to try to understand a doubt that a person was having. And that statement was that the person they heard from regarding reconciliation, not reconciliation so much as explanation of their point of view on something was that it was very possible, still not having described what the substance of what they're speaking about is, but they describe that it's very possible for everything to be there in the Jiva and the substance not be covered, but for the Jiva to be covered, like the example of clouds covering the sun, right? But here is where that analogy has some fault. One is when the sun rises, even when there are clouds, the potency of the sun creates daylight and it removes darkness. Even when it is extremely cloudy out, it is still clear enough for you to see things as they are, right? Maybe not absolutely, may not be as bright, but the nature and potency of the sun is such that when it rises, when it is present, darkness can't be present. On the other hand, when the earth shifts or when the sun rotates, whatever perspective you're going to take, when the sun rotates into a position where it is absent of a particular place, that place becomes immersed in darkness. So really the presence of the substance of something like Svarupa Shakti, it is not a question of it simply being behind clouds, because its influence is so powerful that it still would create illumination simply by its presence. Just as when the sun rises, even when there are clouds, it is daytime. And in the absence of the sun, it is darkness. So a person who is in material darkness, it is indicative of the absence of the spiritual sun that creates illumination, regardless of the nature of the cloudiness of their perspective. Therefore, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's mentioned, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoy Andakar. So in a poetic way, the idea of Krishna being compared to the sun is used. And when he is present, darkness cannot be present. Cloudiness is one thing, darkness is another. Dandavat Pranam, Vanchakopaturvishcha, Kripa Sindhuevacha, Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.